Nice.
Sunny's in.
Yay. And can you pin her, Bree?
I am looking for her now.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Rooker and I'm the director of Norwich Historical Society. And I want to welcome you to Discover Norwich. The mission of Norwich Historical Society is to foster a sense of place through people, stories, and the landscape. And this Discover Norwich program is designed just to do that. Discover Norwich was begun during COVID as a way to connect us all to our neighbors and our community. While the programs feature a wide range of topics, from tonight's talk on raising chickens to behind the scenes at the Norwich Inn, history informs it all. For most of the talks, we're partnering with other Norwich organizations and businesses, so you get the chance to connect with a variety of other groups as well. Now, as you may have heard, Norwich Historical Society suffered a break-in and vandalism right before the new year. The intruder was a teen in a mental health crisis, and we're responding to this event in several ways. Discover Norwich donations this year are dedicated to the increased security of our collections and property, and we'll be sending 20% of all donations to the Youth and Family Services Division of Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services, which serves teens in Windsor County. This week, we've partnered with the Norwich Recreation Department, and I just want to thank Bree Swenson for getting this evening organized, because it's just so much fun to work together. And before we get into the chickens and all our presenters, I'm just, of course, going to share just a little bit of history because I have to, it's my obligation, right? So I'm putting up just a couple of photos. And the theme of the evening was really backyard farming, and then all about chickens. And I thought I'd just put this photo up of downtown Norwich just to remind us all that everybody farmed. And we know in our heads that everybody in Norwich farmed out in the hills, but we forget that even in the center of town, people were. And so look at the back of Main Street here and see all these outbuildings and these pig sheds and the wood lots and the fencing and the crops, and get a sense that really everybody did backyard farm. Here is a photo of the Slack Huntley farm, which is the corner of Turnpike Road and Main Street. And you can see their big barn, you can see their elevated corn crib, you can see next to the wood pile, probably their chicken coop, and just get a sense of what the backyard farming was like. Now, we have maybe 10,000 photos at the Historical Society, and I went through, 1,000 looking for chickens. And you know what? There really aren't very many photos of chickens, but what I did find were photos of sheep. So I thought I'd share these because they're so fascinating. Look at this little boy on Main Street in Norwich with his sheep in yoke pulling a sled. And then on the right, this man here in Norwich is running a treadmill. His sheep is powering their cream separator, separating the milk from the cream on their way to making butter. Wow. And I just had to show a little backyard farming, and sorry, we didn't have any chickens, but we had sheep photos. And then also just really quickly, this is a photo of the Sargent Farm out on New Boston Road. And it's an old stereograph card from the 1870s or maybe 80s, but again, showing a farmstead but when you have a magnifying glass, way in the back is a tiny little chicken coop, but you can see all the buildings. And this family actually had 14 children helping with this farm. This is Ella Sargent, who lived on Norford Lake Road, who kept diaries for many, many, many years. Some of you may remember Aunt Ella's diaries. And she, here's a little bit from her diary where she shows how many eggs she was collecting. And she was taking those eggs to sell. And it was a way for her to earn an income. And that was a way, women, especially widows or women living on their own, were able to bring in some money to supplement their household.
No.
And here's a little slip that shows that she went to the store and she bought soap, she bought lard, she spent $69, and in credit, she brought in $1.98 worth of eggs. So this just showing that she really is, even in this is 1907, I think, she's trading and using eggs to pay for her groceries.
Great.
Here's an egg scale that we have in the collection. Maybe that's from Merrill's store from Dan and Witt's. I'm actually not quite sure. But here's Merrill's store. You might recognize this building as Dan and Witt's today. And I put this in because this is where a lot of people brought eggs to sell. And this, we have the account books that list everything that people spent their money on or brought in. And down at the bottom, you can see that there's a number 7, and Mrs. Cody came in and she bought sugar and oil and tea, and she paid for it with 2 dozen eggs. So eggs were a part of the farm economy and the farm income, although most people just really use the eggs on the farm. And then this is a blurry photo, but I found a little slip to show 30 dozen eggs going down to Boston. So sometimes what people did was they brought their eggs to the store and they were shipped on down to Boston. So that's a little bit just to show you what I found about chickens and, well, sheep and backyards in Norwich. But really tonight, the stars of the show are our chicken keepers in Norwich. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bree so she can introduce everybody and get us going.
Good. Hi. So I'm Bree. I am the rec director, Bree Swenson, sorry, the rec director in Norwich. This is my 3rd year working with the Norwich Historical Society on their Discover Norwich series. Big fan. The first year we talked about trail systems with the Trails Committee, and last year we had a great discussion about foraging with the Conservation Commission. And this year, we're bringing this subject a little closer to our own homes by inviting residents to learn and share about their chickens. We have 4 families who are going to give you tips and tricks for chicken keeping, from which breeds to consider, raising your flock from chickens or chicks or eggs, building creative coops and runs, and finally keeping your chickens safe and healthy. Our own family started raising chickens 3 years ago. And as you can see from these photos, our hens are very much part of the family. We currently have 11 chickens. We have 2 Chapos, 2 golden laced Wyandottes, 1 buff Orpington, 1 I am Samani, 1 Barred Rock, 1 Black Silky, 1 Americana, 1 Buckeye, and 1 Olive Egger. We've had 2 roosters, but we decided that they weren't compatible with the way we want to keep chickens. And so we don't have roosters anymore. The format of this discussion, it is a little different than we've done in the past. So this time I'm going to introduce each person or family along with the subject they plan to speak about. And then you'll hear about which breeds of chickens they currently have at home, and then they'll give their presentation. We are very fortunate to have several children involved in this project, so please be patient with them when they're speaking and when you're asking questions. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions in the time between each presentation instead of at the end. And also at the end of the program, Sarah Rooker will raffle off a dozen eggs to 3 lucky participants, and those eggs come from these families. So with that, I think we can get started, correct, Sarah?
Yep.
All right, we are going to introduce the Fosca family. They're going to be talking about breeds of chickens. Currently, they have 6 hens. They have 3 lavender Orpingtons, 1 Americana, 1 Olive Egger, and 1 Speckled Sussex. Turn it over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Leah. These are my daughters.
I'm Daphne and I'm Greta.
And we have been keeping chickens now for 1 year. We got chickens last spring, so we're still really excited about it. So we remember what it was like to start out. So you're dreaming of chickens. So what things should you consider when you're thinking about what breeds to get?
So many different breeds. What kind of chicken should I get? So one of the things that you want to think about is like their cold hardiness. So like if they have a big comb, or then they're more likely to get frostbite on their comb. And they can also get frostbite on their feet. And then you can also think about their size. So like if you want a big chicken or a small chicken.
How about eggs?
So eggs, how many and what color?
So this is important.
Because you might want lots of eggs from one chicken, and you might want to just get eggs and have chickens lay.
Yeah, so some breeds are known for being really great layers. So they might lay 280 eggs a year, and then other breeds, maybe not so much. So it sort of depends on how important that is to you, that a chicken is really earning its keep, or if you're okay that you're getting fewer eggs. And what about
The
how those?
color.
Yeah.
So we have an Americana, and she lays blue eggs.
Yeah.
And then we have an olive egger, and she lays more green eggs. We have a speckled Sussex that lays like pinkish brownish eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And then our lavender Orpingtons lay like lighter tan eggs.
Yeah, so we have those beautiful egg boxes when we open it up. We have all sorts of different colors.
And then meat. So like if you want to keep your chickens for like a year and then maybe you want to eat them after. It depends if you want to eat them or not, because some breeds you can eat more.
Mm-hmm.
And then temperament and personality. So we have one chicken who's really skittish and really shy and doesn't like us very much. And we have another one who's always following us around, and she really likes us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just add the last part, which is you might want to consider getting a variety. So rather than getting all of one single breed, I would encourage you to get a variety of breeds, because when you peek into wherever they are, it's sometimes difficult when you're older to tell which chicken is which chicken.
Like we have 3 lavender Orpingtons, and you can't tell which one they are.
Sometimes I get it wrong when I'm just going quickly, right? Yeah. And the other thing about getting a variety is that then sometimes one chicken will stop laying eggs, or one chicken will start laying eggs later. So that way you kind of have steady supply of eggs. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
So then West Lab Feed and Supply has great breeds and descriptions. Look at their ordering PDF to get an overview of options. Orpingtons are known for being a great breed for first-time chicken owners. Our lavender Orpingtons are very calm and docile. They are not mean at all. They just want food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just add on to that. Like, I thought I wanted really sweet, calm chickens, and I do, and that's great. But also they're like, they can't figure out how to get out of the run. They can't figure out how to get out of the door. They're maybe not the brightest chicken in the So I think I've learned maybe I like a chicken with a little bit more spunk.
So then our speckled Sussex is the sweetest, friendliest, and most curious. She always follows us around everywhere we go and wants to get into everything. So there, she went into our flower plant and laid an egg there.
You can see if you look underneath at the bottom of her, she had laid an egg. I left the car door open once while I was bringing groceries in, and I went out and she was in the front seat of the car. She will get everywhere. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Then this slide has a lot of text, and I can kind of talk quickly about this. This is just our setup. Basically, this is our spring, summer, fall setup. And we have a chicken tractor, which is movable, and a solar powered electric fence. And we have very little level ground, and I didn't really know what I wanted. I wasn't really ready to commit to building a bigger coop, and I didn't know where I wanted it to go. And I didn't know if chickens were for us. So I thought this would be a good way for us to kind of try things out and see if we liked it. And it's been really great for the most part. It's easy to clean. We move it around so we don't have a permanent mucky area. The bad part is that the cons are
it's really hard to move.
It's really hard to move. The website shows, beautiful ladies in their flowery dresses pushing the coop. That's not been my experience. I'm hauling that thing around, and it is very hard to move that tractor on any incline. If it's flat ground, it's great, but you're just a slight incline and you can feel it. we're also kind of maxed out on space. We can't get any more chicks unless we have a bigger coop. And last but not least, which is important to me, is that the coop is not necessarily cute. It looks pretty space age. It doesn't really have that New England charm to it. It is plastic, although it is made from recycled plastic and fully recyclable, but still. And then the last part, which is important, is, which I learned how important it is that you can kind of see from the slide, but you can't stand up in the run, which maybe doesn't seem like a big deal, but it got old fast.
And you have to put the food in.
Yeah, when you have to put the food in, you have to climb in there to put the food in. You realize standing up is really nice. So this is our spring, summer, fall setup, and it's worked out great, but chickens don't like to walk in the snow. So you can go to the next slide and I'll show you what we did for the snow. I built what's known as a hoop coop. And this is basically an 8x8 box. And
it's lined with straw bales for insulation.
Yep.
Better.
Yep. And my plan is that I'm going to reuse the straw in the garden in the spring. And once the snow melts, the chickens are going to get the boot. They're going to get kicked out, and I'm going to use it as a greenhouse for seedlings. This is all kind of a big science experiment for me. So we will see if it will work or not. Let's see. Oh, the other, what else? Oh, it's covered in it's made from a lot of recycled materials. The cover over top of it is an old liner from an ice skating rink. And on the back, you can see the back of the coop. It's made from bubble mailers that I saved and then duct taped together. And I built this all. Oh, and I did not use a single power tool while I built this. I had a drill. Other than a drill. I built this by myself. My dad helped me one day. He helped me hang the door. But otherwise, I did the rest, and it's been good so far. So we'll see what happens in the spring. Cool.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I have one other thing I wanted to say too, just in terms of technology and thinking about how far we have come from the pictures that you showed. Also on our coop, we have an automatic door opener. So it senses the light and opens and closes. I have a solar powered fence. And then finally, I have, I just set this up yesterday. I bought a little wireless thermometer, hydrometer, because I'm tracking the temperature of the inside of the coop. So I know if I can put my seedlings out or not. And it so connects so I can actually see the temperature of the coop on my phone. Those are all not necessary things, but just interesting to note, maybe keeping chickens in 2023 compared to the past.
Great.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Fosco family.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you want to take any questions now? Do you want to just, there's one question in the chat that I have no problem reading if you'd like me to. Yes? Okay. I see you nodding, so yes.
Yes.
Okay. There is a question for all of the chicken farmers. We had 6 chickens and free range them all day from 8 a.m. till dusk until sadly we lost them probably to an owl. Do you free range, and how do you keep them safe? Does anybody want to take that one? I know we free range in the spring and the summer, but not in the winter.
We pretty much are free ranging now also, but or we were, but now we're not really, because they're not really going out in the snow.
Well, we free range within a fence. We have an electric fence.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the others could answer the question as well as part of their presentation. Oh, Sunny, though. Sunny
has her hand up.
The answer, unfortunately, is that you cannot keep them safe if you're free ranging, especially in Vermont, because we just have too many predators. When I lived in the suburbs, I free ranged my chickens, and even then we had hawks landing on our swing set to try and get our chickens. There's no way to do it safely. I free range my chickens from probably about 3:30 until dusk. It's just a couple hours just to get them out and about, but that's a gamble. Today, my favorite chicken was missing and I was almost heartbroken, but she popped out from under my deck and she was fine, but it's scary, and there's no way to be safe is the short answer to that.
And I have a little tip on free ranging, which is probably, it's more of a, I make my kids go out when the kids are, when they're free ranging, and the kids are really loud and they keep the predators away. That's about it. You can't do that all the time.
I do that. Yeah, I let them out when we're outside, and we're mainly outside. I mean, all day in the summertime.
Great. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Sarah, are you comfortable with me moving on
Yep.
to Sunny? Sunny, are you ready?
I am ready.
Great. So Sunny is going to talk about brooding and raising chickens. She has 14 chickens. She has Easter eggers, a copper Moran, white leghorns, crested cream leg bars, olive eggers, and lavender orpingtons. Oh, and Isa Browns. Those are great too.
Yeah. So just to say, this little chick here is my favorite chicken. That's Barney. She's adorable and she's super not smart, and I just love her to pieces. But she's like the cutest chick I've ever seen. I just have to. Anyway, I highly suggest now is the time to order chicks from West Leb, because they are all of my chicks were super healthy and they've got a great selection. And out of 16 chickens that I ordered, only 2 were boys. So they are really good at telling the gender. They tell it by their feathers on their wings, which is pretty interesting science. But they did a great job. I'm really happy with what I got. They have a great selection. And if you order now, the earliest you'll get them is April, but that gives you plenty of time to get some stuff ready for these little fellas. So again, just like the last people said, you want to consider the breeds that suit you in your space. I wanted colorful eggs, so I went for chickens that laid colorful eggs. But you might want to consider bigger chickens are going to take up more space in your coop, and smaller chickens will take up less. So you can get more bantams in your coop than you can Jersey Giants. So it's all stuff you want to consider before you pick your breeds. And then I think we're ready for the next slide. Okay, so you want to plan your brooder. I had a lot, 16 chicks is a lot of chicks to brood. I've brooded before, probably 5 or maybe a few more, but you have to kind of figure out how much space you're going to need. Now, when they're small, you can usually use a storage bin with a little grate over top and a heat lamp or a heat plate. But since I had so many, I didn't open up this entire space. And these are like refrigerator sized boxes next to each other inside a tent. So this is an enormous, it took up an entire room. It's an enormous amount of space, but it was a lot of chicks and I wanted to make sure they had enough space. I didn't open this all up to them in the beginning. I opened it up more and more as they got older and got bigger. But it's kind of modular, which was really nice. I could move it around or cut holes in it or do whatever I wanted to make it more entertaining for them, because they do get bored. But you want to consider a top. When they start getting bigger, they're going to start to jump and fly. So you want to kind of keep them contained, because they obviously don't want them out. They get into everything. They use everything as their restroom, and they make a big, big mess. And they're very, very dusty and kind of dirty. So as you can see in this brooder, I have a lot of things for them to play with, a lot of things to keep them occupied. Chickens are really, really amazing pets and super fun, but they do get bored like the rest of us. And if you don't give them things to do, they'll start picking at each other and getting into other really bad habits. So you want to make sure that they have things to perch on and things to explore and play with, like mirrors, or you can see I've hung some squash of some sort. And so there's all, there's all sorts of stuff for them to explore in there. I think we're ready for the next slide. Okay, yes, coops. So on the left is the coop that we ordered. We got it from Carriage Shed in White River Junction. They have great coops. They're kind of expensive, but they have great quality coops. And when we have a lot of predators, like the guy on the right, we want to make sure that something's, going to be really solid for them. My husband and I built the run to the right because we also have an incline and we wanted to make it kind of suitable to our landscape. So you have to look into how much space you need per chicken. That translates to how big a coop you need, as well as how much space you need in an enclosed run. There's a whole lot to know about chicken runs and how to keep chickens safe in general, but it involves a lot of hardware cloth and sometimes some bear fencing or some electric fencing, which is what we got after the bear came to visit us. So that stuff you can all find online. And, you know, as far as how much space you need and what you can use to, sorry, I'm looking at questions, what you can use to build your coop to keep the chickens safe. But yeah, that's definitely something you want to think about, is how much space you'll need. The chicken run itself, you need about 10 square feet of space per bird. So you want to pick a space that you can build upon so that they have enough room and they don't start getting into bad habits. I think we're good for the next slide. Oh, this is a lot. So I'm hoping that you can take a screenshot, or they can kind of have a link for this, because this is what a brooder needs. A brooder needs a heat source. Lamps, those red lamps are popular. I've used them before, but they are a fire hazard. And if the chicks get into them, they can burn themselves. I've been using heater plates, and I see someone's asking about the cold. That's a very controversial issue. A lot of things with chickens can be controversial because everybody has a very strong opinion. But we actually, because of how cold it's getting, we put a few heater plates, which are very safe and pretty low heat, into our coop because we noticed a little frostbite on our chickens' combs. When you put a heat source in the brooder, you want to make sure that it's on one side of the brooder, because if the chicks get too hot, they can die from that. And if it's on one side, they can kind of gauge their proximity to it, to their comfort level. You're going to need a waterer. I like to elevate the feeder and the waterer because they will kick whatever bedding you have into it, and then they won't be able to drink it. And it really makes a mess, and it's kind of aggravating because the second you put clean water in there, they kick stuff right into it. So elevate it a bit, make sure that they can get to it. A lot of people put marbles in, which I've done. I don't know that it's necessary, but you'll see chicks do fall asleep at the drop of a hat. So I could see them falling asleep in a water and drowning themselves. For the first couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks, you want to give them electrolyte supplements, which are easy enough to find in Tractor Supply or the feed store. It's just a little powder that you mix into their water, and that helps their body kind of bounce back from being shipped around and traveling. In the beginning, you want to feed the chicks only chick crumbles. Adult chicken food has calcium in it, and calcium to premature chickens, where they're not laying eggs yet, it can ruin their kidneys essentially. So you don't want to give them any calcium until they start laying eggs. Chick-sized grit, it's like little pieces of stone. It goes in their gullet and it breaks down their food. It helps them digest. Bedding is another controversial issue. There are a lot of different kinds of bedding out there. A lot of people use a lot of different things. I used straw that was infused with natural sweet PDZ, which is a smell reducing thing. They use it in horse stalls a lot, I think. You can also use pine shavings, which I've done. Some people say that their chicks eat that stuff and it can cause impacted crop, but I haven't had these problems. But you know, if you're not comfortable with that, you can do some research and see if there's something that works for you a little better. Yeah, so like I was saying, entertainment, you want to hang fruits or vegetables, hang mirrors, because they're birds and they love to look at themselves in the mirror. You can put stickers on the walls because they'll peck things that look different. You can bury treats, or when they're old enough, treats are scratched for them to forage, because chickens love to forage. Add perches, that's their favorite thing, probably, to jump on things and perch. But yes, be careful with strings. I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook chicken groups lately have given their chickens treats that have strings, and they end up consuming the string and it's coming out both ends. And it's a scary situation because of how their digestive system works. You can kind of hurt them if you try and pull them out. So just be mindful of strings, try to avoid them if possible. The brooder is really gross. Like, I'm not going to lie about it. It's really gross. So you're going to have to clean it a lot. There's a lot of dust. Wherever you put that thing is going to really need a deep cleaning when you're all done, because the dust gets everywhere and it's really kind of tough. I mean, the chicks are adorable, so they make up for it, but it's rough, and you want to just kind of gauge by the smell when you really need to take care of that brooder, because you are going to need to clean it from time to time. So next slide. Okay, so you want to start introducing them to the outdoors when the temperatures are warm enough and the chicks are big enough. There is like a timeline when the chicks get to when they are first in your care, they need 103-degree temperatures. And as they get bigger, their need for warmer temperatures decreases. So obviously, when that coincides with the warmth of outside, eventually you get to a point where it's comfortable enough for them to be outside for a little bit. But it's kind of like hardening off plants, where you take them out for a little bit and you bring them back inside. The next day you take them out for a little bit longer and you bring them back inside, and you do that again and again until they can be left outside overnight. And obviously in their coop, because I would never leave them outside overnight otherwise. And this was just what you see here is just like a little kind of animal playpen. So I would be there with them in the playpen and just let them kind of run around in it. And then they started flying over the top of it, which was problematic. So you'll get creative, because chickens are never a finished deal. You're always creating new things for their coop or their run or for their entertainment or whatever else. So eventually they get acclimated to outside. But likewise, it's like if the chicken's cold and you bring it inside for a little bit and you let it back outside, it can die from shock then too. So you want to really kind of take your time getting them used to temperatures. And lastly, you want to give them your time. I mean, I know it's super fun to have chickens. They're so entertaining and they're absolutely hilarious pets. I will never not have chickens again. Even if you're not really into having them as pets, the more time you spend with them and the more you handle them, if a chicken has a problem and you need to be able to hold that chicken to see what the problem is, to fix the problem or any of that, you're going to want to spend time with that chicken, because chickens are very flighty animals. And if you don't spend your time with them, if they don't trust you and get to know you, they will run away from you, and it's very hard to catch them. So I always suggest to spend time with them. But if you do let them climb on you and sleep on you and such, I really suggest that you lay down a towel or wear old clothes, because they will poop on you, and it's not a pleasant scenario. So that is about it for me, I think, unless I have some questions.
There are some questions. Thank you, Sunny. That was actually, it's great information. That was, yeah. So some of the questions are, did you find a chicken sitter? I know we have neighbors who also have chickens. And so we kind of our vacations are kind of run around our chickens. And then my kids chicken sit all over town as well. I'm sure some of these kids would love to chicken sit as well. Anybody else know any chicken sitters?
I think it's pretty easy to find chicken sitters. You really just say, come, and if all you have to do is check on them, and then you give them free eggs. Yeah, take all the eggs you want. People love that. I've never had a problem finding chicken sitters.
Yeah.
And I've had chickens for 7 years and it's never been a problem. So I think it's easy enough to find one.
Nice.
Oops,
And which local vets can take care of chickens? I know that River Road has taken care of one of our chickens.
Yeah, that's where I would suggest too.
Anybody else have any chicken injuries that required a vet? No? Okay. And a basic question, when do chickens start laying eggs?
What is that? It's like 16 weeks or something like that.
But I was thinking too.
Our experience has been around 20 weeks.
20, great.
It depends on the breed though, because breeds like Orpingtons take longer to lay.
We had one, our Americana, we got her in April and she didn't start laying eggs until I think it was December 1st.
And she
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
I thought something was
at
wrong.
the summer, I mean, in the winter, she's been laying like all of her eggs now, and none of the other chickens have.
Yeah, she's been laying an egg a day since then, but she didn't start until December.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Did anybody have any other advice for the extreme cold? I know that we have done the same with the heating plates. We have also, my husband has caulked up all of the cracks that could be in our coop, added extra bedding, just trying to prevent the drafts. But other than that, we're just hoping.
We're bringing ours inside.
We might.
Oh, I was waiting for somebody to say that.
I was debating. I'm like, I was actually going to ask everyone here tonight. I was very curious what people are going to do. We have a little area in the basement. We could bring them in. I have a little tent. I was thinking I could put them in there. I don't know though. I don't even know if they need it. So I don't know.
Maybe
No.
people could put their tips in the chat for that so we can.
Yeah, that's a great
add
idea,
further.
because we want to move on to the
Everybody-
Aquila family. Since I see this lovely slide is up. The Aquila family is here. They're going to be talking about creative coop building. They have 19 hens and 1 rooster. They're very adventurous. They have buff Orpingtons, lavender Orpingtons, black sex lengths, cream leg bars, Americanas, olive eggers, and an Americana rooster from Miss Chesley at MCS. We got one of those too. Over their 9 years of owning chickens, they've built 4 different coops and expanded an enclosed run on one of those coops. So, hello, Aquila family.
Good evening. So I'm just going to comment on these 3 pictures here. We started chicken farming back in 2014 when our daughter was the small child in the middle. That is the first coop that we built. And then on the left, you can see that we had a bigger coop and we have another child. And then on the right, our chick brooder was an old desk that we turned upside down. So we used what we had in our creativity. Go ahead to the next slide. So over our years, these are the different coops we built. At the top, we have what we started with as a chicken tractor, but just like Leah, we also found it a pain to move. And so once it got put, it didn't move. And unfortunately, we had a weasel that got underneath and ate all of our chickens. So that's when we built the coop on the bottom left, which was Fort Knox. It has a poured cement foundation, and it's got a fully enclosed run with hardware cloth so that nothing can get into it. And that coop still goes today. That coop has had an expansion, so now it's got an additional run outside area off to the side of it as well. The one in the middle on the bottom is kind of like Sunny, where we had to build on a hill and we kind of worked with what we had. Going through the door, you can't stand up to get into the run, but once you're inside it, because of the slope, you can stand. So Leah, we also understand walking through doors hunched over carrying water and or food is not ideal either. And then the picture on the bottom right is the little casita that we built before we had the chicken coop in the middle bottom. It was a temporary piece to hold our chickens, and they free ranged outside of that. Our biggest trick for free ranging is bringing them in before dusk. We always find that our chickens disappear around 4 o'clock. So we try to bring them in at 3. But when the days get shorter, they stay inside. Next slide.
Here's the resources you have. Chickens naturally roost in trees, but find branches and hang them in your coop/run. Nobody likes poop-covered eggs. Put hay, sawdust, or cut grass from mowing into your egg boxes. And store and cut grass over winter/outdoors. Make sure it's covered, except critters trying to live in it.
Next slide, please.
Carrying water through the snow is hard. Place your coop near your frost-free water spigot and an electric outlet. It's better if the trail between your spigot and your coop is flat or level ground. Place your water in a location that is easy to access in the coop. 5-gallon water is heavy, but you don't have to fill it often. And 1 gallon water is light, but you have to fill it all the time. You might need a base heater, so that's why you need an electric outlet nearby to plug it in with an extension cord.
Next slide.
We built 4 coops, and we built 4 coops. So we learned a couple of things that are difficult. I think if you can't turn around inside your coop with a shovel, it's really difficult to clean. When you walk into the coop and it smells bad, you may not have enough ventilation, or it's really wet, and so that's about time to get your shovel. Another mistake that we made once was like when the ventilation faces the prevailing breeze, and so chickens do get frostbite. And so for folks who are worried about how cold it is tonight, again, as long as wind's not getting into the coop where your chickens are roosting, you should be okay. They fluff up like any other bird, and will keep themselves warm. Christina talked about that foundation and critters getting underneath, so that's why we built one out of concrete one year. And we have had an 8x8 coop that has had 30 chickens in it. That's way too many. The chickens pick on each other all the time. Even though the USDA says 2 square feet per bird is free range, that's really not enough. So about a third that is better. The more space you can give them, the better. But we wanted a run that they could walk around in during the day and still be safe when we weren't here. That's all we got. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thanks, Violet.
Are there any questions in the chat? I think I saw them all.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you see any that I missed? I think we got them all.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That is great. Thank you very much. And next we have the Morleys. So this is, are you ready? Okay, this is Maddie and Margaret Morley. They've had chickens for as long as they can remember. And after losing much of their 19 hens to predators last summer, the remaining hens went to spend the winter at their neighbor's chicken palace. They currently have a speckled Sussex, a barred rock, and a Jersey giant. They're currently trying to convince their parents to get lots of baby chicks in the spring, but that's going to require updating their coop to make it more secure. They have incubated eggs, which was super cool, but only resulted in roosters, which I still think is a great story. I haven't had that happen yet. That was not what they were after. Tonight, they're going to share what they've learned about common chicken illnesses and predators. Take it away, Morleys.
All right, these are some pictures of us with our chickens, and we are going to share some of our experience with chickens. Next slide, please. So we're going to be talking about the crop and the vent, where we found some common problems. Next slide, please. What is the crop? Chickens don't have teeth, so they can't chew food. A chicken picks up food into a beak and swallows it. The food travels down the esophagus to the crop, really just a big bulge in the esophagus. The chicken stores the food in the crop until she can digest it. Next slide, please. So this is what a normal crop looks like. It's like a little bit to the left. And it's normal for it to be big at night, but in the morning it usually empties out. Next slide. So this is the chicken with sauerkraut, and as you can see, the chicken has a bigger crop than it did in the last picture, and it is big, and it cannot digest the food because there's no muscles in the crop. It cannot push the food out of the crop, so the crop just is full and it can't get the food out. Next slide, please. What is sauerkraut? Sauerkraut is when a chicken gets a yeast infection in the crop. Some causes are eating too many carbohydrates, eating long grass, and exposure to moldy foods or water. A chicken might have sauerkraut if you notice a bulging crop, not moving or eating normally, or sour smelling breath. Next slide. Treatment of sauerkraut. Isolate chicken, feed small amounts of scrambled eggs, plain yogurt, no carbs. Can use over-the-counter medicine for yeast infection. More drastic measures include flushing the crop. You can learn lots about this online, but we hope that you never have to get experience with it. Next slide. Prevention of sauerkraut. It's always better to prevent than treat. Keep water clean. Many people add apple cider vinegar and probiotics. Don't let them eat too much at one time, and avoid sweet treats and lots of bread. Next slide. Impacted crop. Crop is jammed, and the food is unable to move to the rest of the digestive tract. Can be caused by food objects such as twine, etc. Treatment. Gently massage the crop. More drastic measures include surgery, opening the crop. Again, avoid if you can. Next slide, please. Impacted crop. So this is a picture of impacted crop. So the crop is really full because the food can't move out of the crop, and it can feel like a water balloon, so that's not a good thing. Next slide. Pendulous crop. If sour crop or impacted crop are untreated, can develop into pendulum crop. Weighted down and stretched out crop swings like a pendulum. No muscle in crop, so food cannot get to the rest of the digestive tract. Hen can become malnourished and may die. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of a crop support so that the sour crop doesn't turn into pendulous crop. So it needs some support, because if it's not supported, then it will get stretched out and the chicken could die. Next slide. So now we will be talking about the vent. Next slide, please. The cloaca of the chicken. Only one, eggs, pee, and poo. Can get clogged by eggs or poo. Next slide, please. So you need to wipe the baby chicken's butt. So this is a picture. If you do not wipe the baby chicken butt, the vent will be clogged and the chick may die. Next slide, please. So egg bound. So egg bound is when an egg is stuck and the hen can die if it's not removed within 24 to 48 hours. Next slide. So common chicken predators: coyotes and foxes, dogs, hawks and owls, crows, weasels, and fishes, raccoons. Next slide. Predator defenses. Radios are good for coyotes and foxes. Our hens listen to NPR. A crow decoy. So crows are very smart and they're scared of dead crows, so they'll be scared away. And CDs and mylar tape for crows, hawks, and other aerial predators, because when they need to focus in on the eggs, that makes it very hard for them to do with mylar tape and CDs. Electric fencing for neighbors' dogs, foxes, and coyotes, and hardware cloth and closing in at night for weasels, fishers, etc. Next slide. Dude, so bright. Totally blinding, dude. So this is kind of what we imagine our birds thinking of the Milo tape and old CDs. Next slide, please. So that's everything we have.
Mm-hmm. Any questions?
you.
Yeah, do we have quite, oh, hold on. What can prevent an egg to come out? We can post that to all of the, or pose that to all of the participants here. So why could a hen be egg bound?
I think it's like the best.
I'm not 100% sure what stops it from coming out, but something's structurally or the shape or as it's moving through, it just gets stuck.
Yes, I've had one neighbor heroically rescue an egg bound egg from her hen. Not to get too graphic, but it included gloves and Vaseline, but the hen survived.
So
Your neighbors, right?
Leah mentioned a great tip of isolating the chicken. If the chicken's still going to the bathroom, then you've got a little bit more time. But if your chicken is not going to the bathroom, then you can either Google it and attempt it yourself, or then you can decide if it's worth a trip to the vet or not.
But none of us really know what causes it, right?
Mhm.
I haven't experienced it myself.
So we had one that we thought was egg bound last summer, and what I read online was it's probably like I mean, it could just be that the egg is too big, but the problem there is that if a hen is laying too big of eggs, it's most likely to do that again in the future. So it's probably like a genetic thing. Not always, but sometimes.
Leah, go.
Do we have any other questions?
I don't see any more in the chat here, so I am going to thank all of our families for participating. You guys did a great job.
Great.
Nice.
Yeah, look at all the people clapping.
Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
We are raffling off 3 dozen eggs, and I took our spreadsheet of everyone who signed up and handed it off to my handy dandy assistant at home, who put his finger down on some names, because that's my high tech approach. And our 3 winners are Jenny Anderson, who I know is here, and is Carol Bebo here? She got it. And Stephanie Hamilton would be our 3 winners. I see some hands up too, but that's our raffle. Before we get to the final hands up and any sort of other chat questions, I just want to say thanks for coming, and we have a few more Discover Norwiches coming up. Next week, we're going to do behind the scenes at the Norwich Inn, which is on Zoom, but there's ghost stories, funny stories about guests, some history, and photos of the kitchen and all sorts of spaces you might not have seen before. And then the next one after that is Stump the Experts, with questions to the librarian and myself in town about Norwich. So you can submit your questions online or at the library in a box. And then finally, we're going to do on how to research the history of your house. We're going to show you all sorts of online sources for researching your property. And then we're going to walk you through how we researched a house step by step. And we even have photos of ourselves in the town clerk's office holding up all the books so you can see what they look like. So that'll be the final one. So we hope you can come to a few more. And I also want to just thank all you guys. You did a great job tonight. And I think we all learned a lot. It was so fun to have families and kids share, because you know more than a lot of the adults here. And that's pretty great that you guys can be experts and share to adults. So thank you. It looks like we have a few questions. Shannon, you can unmute and just ask your question if you want. And thanks to those of you who are here. We'll just do some verbal questions in chat for a final few more minutes. Shannon?
Sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand.
Oh, okay.
But if anyone sells eggs, let me know.
Okay. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute and chat if you do. Otherwise, thanks everybody for coming. Looks like we are done.
And Sarah, where should they pick up their eggs? Because I'm happy to have them here at Tracy Hall.
I think they should be at Tracy Hall. Yeah.
Okay.
And when do you want to have them all there? Tomorrow?
I can have them tomorrow. Sunny, I can pick up eggs, right, tomorrow.
Okay.
All
here we come.
I'll figure it out.
All right, I'll send emails to everyone too.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great night.
Thank
Nice
you,
to see
everybody.